Welcome to the Odds Breakers, your number one place for shared, sharp betting information.
Hell no, to the no, no, no. Hell to the no, hell to the no, to the no, no, no. Hell no, no, to the no, no. Hell to the no, no, to the no, 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 no. Hell to the no, no.
My friends, welcome back to Podcast 41 of 2018. I'm your host, Kiev O'Neill. You can tweet me at the Public Dog, or you can tweet us at the Odds Breakers. Should you be looking for a sports book to place your bets, please visit waiver.eu and use the promo code TheOddsBreakers for a one-time 100% sign-up bonus. Terms and conditions apply. If you will help us out with our costs, we will help you out. Please become a patron subscriber by visiting our website and click on Patreon, and we'll make you an Odds Breaker member. Not only will you get the podcast early, we will give you our premium picks when we make the plays. Don't risk the line moves. If nothing else, please visit our website, theoddsbreakers.com, and become a newsletter subscriber for our free picks. We had a pretty good week again. 14-7-1 in college football. If you count money line sprinkles, if you don't count them, we are 14-5-1. Absolutely crushed it again, my friends. And in this business, you can't get too high, and you definitely can't get too low because you're going to have a bad week. It's just going to happen. We just have to make sure that we stay above 52.5%. When people emailed us and gave us hate mail after week 1 for going 4-10, did we let that affect us?
Hell no, to the no, no, no. Hell to the no, hell to the no.
But when people told us and asked us, what are you doing? Why do you keep betting all those smelly dogs? Did we listen to them?
Hell no, to the no, no, no. Hell to the no, hell to the no, to the no, no, no.
When people said that our music sucked and we have to change our music, did we change anything?
Hell no, to the no, no, no. Hell to the no.
When I accidentally got my wife pregnant again, and she now says that I'm the one that has to go to the doctor and get snipped, did I argue with her?
Hell no, to the no, no, no. Hell to the no, hell to the no, to the no, no, no.
My friends, we had a fantastic weekend in college football. Of course, then the NFL shows up with their ugly face, but we're hovering around 500 this week in the NFL. In college football, we are, including moneyline sprinkles, 45-31-1, up 17 units. NFL, 8-11. We'll see what happens to Tampa Bay tonight. But let's get in to the recap from college football week 4. All right, we're going to start with the Friday game, Florida Atlantic versus Central Florida. You know, these offenses weren't quite as high-flying as before, especially Florida Atlantic. They really took a step back. Lane Kiffin proved once again that he's a very good play caller, but he's just terrible at managing a football game. You saw that at the end of the first half. Doesn't know when to kick a field goal. Lets the clock run out on him. He's just terrible at that. But we nailed the over anyway. But it was kind of in question until the end of the third quarter. Florida Atlantic got desperate way too early. They're throwing picks in the red zone, and they just didn't play careful football. And Mackenzie Milton for Central Florida, he's an NFL football player now. He doesn't play in an NFL system, but he's very accurate and aware. Okay, and he's very, very fast. He really gets out of situations. He needs to work on some seam routes and a few other things, but I think he's an NFL guy. This ain't no Paxton Lynch. This guy's going to be a pretty good player, I think. Penn State versus Illinois. Well, this game was a very sharp play on Illinois. It was going like I expected, of course, until the very end. Illinois' defense was pretty bad, but their offense looks improved, and they have some better play calling than the years past. Lo and behold, though, with a lead going into the fourth quarter, and you're sitting there with 27.5 points in your pocket, Lovey pulls a Lovey, and they give up 35 points, screwing me, the Sharps, and all of the Illinois faithful. It was brutal. The reason Smith has a job is by his name alone. The Chicago Bears won in spite of Lovie Smith. I think they just had a great team with Urlacher, Brown, Briggs, Thomas Jones. They had a great team. And maybe if they had just a little bit better of an offensive line and a different coach, they probably would have been to 2 Super Bowls and won one of them. Lovie Smith is a terrible game manager and football coach, both. It's just inexcusable. Washington State University versus USC. Well, USC got their revenge, but they didn't cover the spread. Didn't really pay a ton of attention to this game, but that's all you really have to say here. I guess it was pretty exciting towards the end. It was a pretty close score, but I was more focused on Illinois blowing it than Washington State versus USC. Nebraska versus Michigan. It's strange to see Scott Frost get boat raced like this. We took the over on this baby, and as soon as we saw Martinez was starting, we felt better about it. But apparently, we didn't even need him. Nebraska plays very fast, which means they can lose fast. All right? Remember that. When a fast team plays, they also give up a ton of points because the amount of plays per game goes way up. If you want a hot take on Scott Frost in Nebraska, you could say gimmicky offenses do not work as well in the Big Ten, and maybe he's not going to be as successful as people think. We've seen gimmicky offenses play the Big Ten. They got smoked. They work great in the smaller conferences, but a disciplined big conference that can get their hands up into the quarterback usually can stop those types of plays. Now, that's just a hot take. Don't buy too much into it if you're a Nebraska fan, okay? I do have a lot of Nebraska friends, but I'm just concerned about it. And maybe Mackenzie Milton was Frost struck gold with him, maybe. And maybe it was a little bit more of him, kind of like the Belichick-Brady. They were a perfect marriage for each other when he was at Central Florida. North Carolina versus Wake Forest. Well, when I made this bet, I thought Wimbush was going to start instead of Ian Book. Okay. Ian Book was able to book that win. He played way better than Wimbush could play, and we lost on the side here. Nailed the over, though. But, this was a nice look-ahead spot to Stanford, but it did not work out. Tulane versus Ohio State. I can't believe Meyer had to score that last TD with 1 minute and 10 seconds left, up by 36. That kind of goes to show you what everybody is saying here. You know, I mean, why did you need to do that? They covered the spread with that. You know, there was less than a minute left, and they were winning by 36 points. That was brutal to be on the Tulane side there. But, you know, I'm thinking that now that betting is legalized, well, mostly prohibition's been lifted, obviously. Teams might start trying to cover for their fans and for their alumni. You know, so I'm starting to kind of think that. Now, you saw Penn State kind of lay it to Illinois as well at the end. Well, they play each other this week, and they deserve each other. Virginia Tech versus Old Dominion. So we thought that Virginia Tech was good because they beat Florida State, right? I'm a little guilty of it, but I'm glad I didn't lay those 28 points. Virginia Tech lost outright, okay? It was really sad, and Old Dominion played some great ball. I watched some of the second half of that game, but Virginia Tech couldn't stop that big guy running the ball. Forgot his name. He's a beast. And maybe they're a little bit looking ahead to Duke, but there might be some value on Virginia Tech now, so we'll see where that line kind of ends up. Wisconsin versus Iowa. There was no value on this game. None. I mean, you saw that Wisconsin needed that last drive to win the game. And then what a bad beat on the over through that last second pick six. What a terrible beat that was. Okay? That happens, and it sucks. I thought about betting the under in that game, and I'm glad I didn't. But Wisconsin kind of showed that some poise there, being able to come back, but they still have some issues, man. They're still not that. It's almost like Hornibrook needs to warm up for a half before he can be somewhat good. Are they not warming up hard enough? I don't know. But it has not been looking good for them. Stanford versus Oregon. Now, Oregon really blew this game. Absolutely blew it. They were up by a ton by the fourth quarter. I think it was like 20-some points. And then Stanford came back to win the game. In the second half, at the end of the first half, they were up by 24 points. It was, it was actually 24-7. Then Stanford came back, scored 14 in the third, and scored 10 in the fourth. Brutal. What a meltdown by the Ducks. And now they have to go to Cal and face a tough Cal team that's wanting revenge. That's not good. Stanford, now you can start talking about them as a possible playoff team. Well, that's kind of all I have for a recap. Wasn't all that crazy or exciting. Alabama blew out Texas A&M, but they did not cover the spread. Can you believe it? But, they're only favored by like 49 points this week, so do whatever hell you want with that. And we'll get into this week's games coming up. First, I want to get in to our Big Ten power ratings. Just going to cover mine. Ohio State stays at 25.5. They're right around that spread. Penn State stays at 20. They probably should have definitely not covered against Illinois. Should have won by only like 20 points or so. Michigan moves up from 17 to 18. Michigan deserves it. They put a pounding on Nebraska, and they look better than when they played Notre Dame. Wisconsin stays at 16. Like I said, no value there.